The jungle steamed under the weight of an alien sun. Thick green foliage pressed in from every side, humming with unseen life and the calls of strange creatures. Marcus knelt low in the damp underbrush, his breathing steady as he tracked the movement ahead. His bow, crafted from both human ingenuity and scavenged alien metals, felt like an extension of his arm. Every sense sharpened, every muscle ready to release. He was alone, but he felt alive. The prey moved fast, some kind of beast that looked like a mix between a jaguar and a reptile, scales shimmering beneath its fur. Marcus had been shadowing it for hours, careful not to make a sound. Sweat ran down his back, but he ignored it. Patience was everything. He knew that in this world hesitation meant death, but so did rushing in. He had learned that the hard way. A branch cracked above, but Marcus didn't flinch. He already knew he was being watched. For days now he'd felt it. The sensation of eyes lingering on him. The weight of silent judgment from somewhere beyond sight. Still, he refused to break focus. The hunt came first. If the watchers wanted to reveal themselves, they would. Until then, his arrow was aimed only at the beast. When the creature lunged forward, Marcus loosed the arrow. It cut through the thick, humid air and struck with precision, burying itself deep into the beast's side. The monster roared, thrashing violently. But Marcus was already moving, sprinting through vines and roots with speed born from training and desperation. His knife flashed as he leapt upon the creature, finishing the hunt with a clean strike to the throat. Blood stained his hands as the animal stilled beneath him. He breathed hard, his chest rising and falling before finally standing tall over the fallen prey. For a moment the jungle seemed to fall silent, as though acknowledging the kill. Marcus wiped the blade against his leg, turning his gaze upward. "Still watching?" he muttered, his voice steady. That was when he saw her. Emerging from the shadows of the foliage, she moved with a grace that seemed unnatural. Her skin shimmered faintly blue in the dappled light, her silver hair cascading like liquid over her shoulders. She was tall, her body lean and sculpted with the precision of a warrior's life, and in her hand she carried a spear that glowed faintly with some kind of crystal energy. Her eyes locked on him, sharp and assessing, but filled with something else too. Curiosity. Marcus tightened his grip on his knife instinctively, though he didn't raise it. He wasn't stupid. She wasn't some jungle wanderer. She was trained, deadly, and clearly not human. Still, she hadn't attacked. "Not yet. You move like a predator," she said, her voice low but carrying easily through the humid air. Her accent was strange, rolling in ways Marcus couldn't place, but her words were clear. "For one of your kind, that is." "Unexpected." Marcus tilted his head slightly, wiping more blood from his arm. "You've been following me." The alien warrior stepped closer, water from the stream lapping at her thighs as she emerged fully into view. The spear gleamed brighter now, catching reflections from the canopy above. "I wanted to see if the stories were true," she admitted, her lips curling faintly into what could have been amusement or warning. "That a human could survive here, that one of you could hunt as we do." Marcus smirked faintly, though his heart hammered in his chest. "And what's your verdict?" The alien huntress studied the slain beast at his feet, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "Impressive," she whispered. Then, as though speaking more to herself than to him, she added words that made Marcus's pulse skip. A hunter like that deserves to pass on his genes. For a moment, Marcus froze, unsure if he'd heard her right. There was no mistaking the way she said it, her tone filled with awe, almost reverence. She wasn't mocking him. She meant it, but why? He was just a man surviving in a hostile world. To her people, wasn't he supposed to be prey, not potential? He let the silence stretch before answering. "That's a strange thing to say to a stranger in the jungle." His voice carried a rough edge, but curiosity stirred beneath his caution. The huntress tilted her head, studying him further, as if measuring his worth. "Stranger, yes, but strength speaks louder than names. My people value the hunter, the provider, the one who can endure." The words settled between them like a challenge. Marcus shifted slightly, eyeing her spear, her posture, the way she carried herself. Everything about her radiated confidence and power. She was not someone to take lightly. "So what now?" he asked quietly. "Do you go back to your people and tell them a human impressed you? Or do you kill me here before I become a problem?" The huntress gave a faint smile, bearing the smallest hint of sharp teeth. "If I wished you dead, you would not be speaking." "No, Marcus of Earth." She said his name as if it had always been hers to speak, though he had never told her. "I will not kill you." He stiffened at the sound of his name, realization sinking in. She knew him. She had been watching far longer than he thought. His survival wasn't coincidence. He had been part of something larger, some test or game he hadn't understood until now. "Then what do you want from me?" he asked, his voice low, wary. The huntress stepped closer, the glow of her spear dimming as she planted it in the stream. "Perhaps nothing. Perhaps everything," she said softly, her eyes glinting. "But I know this, you have proven yourself today. Not to me, but to the jungle itself. Few men, few of even my own people, would face that beast and live." Marcus looked at the beast at his feet, then back at her. He should have felt triumph, but instead unease gnawed at him. Whatever this woman wanted, it wasn't simple admiration. Her gaze lingered too long, her words too heavy with meaning. "So what happens now?" he pressed. The huntress gave no immediate answer. Instead, she turned, letting the water swirl around her as she began to walk deeper into the stream. Then she glanced back, silver hair glimmering in the fading light. "Now you follow," she said, "if you wish to understand why the jungle chose you." Marcus stood there, torn between caution and curiosity. Every instinct told him this was dangerous, but another part of him, the part that had kept him alive all this time, urged him forward. He cleaned his blade, slung his bow across his back, and stepped after her into the water. The jungle around them pulsed with life, as if holding its breath for what was to come. The huntress moved with silent ease, her figure glowing faintly against the shadows, and Marcus, human and hunter, followed, each step dragging him deeper into a story he hadn't asked for, but couldn't walk away from. The water grew deeper as Marcus followed the huntress into the stream, each step forcing him to adjust to the uneven stones beneath the surface. The jungle canopy filtered the sunlight into shifting ribbons that danced across her glowing skin, highlighting the faint luminescence that seemed to emanate from her body. Marcus found himself watching the way she moved. Every step was calculated, precise, like a predator that feared nothing. He wondered how many men had followed her like this before and how many had lived to speak of it. His hand never strayed far from the hilt of his knife, though some part of him already sensed it wouldn't save him if she turned on him. For several minutes, neither spoke. The jungle itself seemed to fill the silence with the drone of insects and the distant calls of creatures hidden in the foliage. Marcus's mind raced as he weighed the risks. He should have turned back the moment she revealed herself, but there was something magnetic about her presence, an energy that tugged at his curiosity and his instincts all at once. This was more than fascination with the unknown. It felt as if he had stepped into a current too strong to escape. His hunter's instinct, which had always guided him before, now urged him to keep going, even as caution gnawed at his thoughts. Finally, she stopped in a clearing where the water opened into a crystal pool, fed by a small waterfall that spilled from a rocky ledge above. The sight was mesmerizing, almost otherworldly, but Marcus's focus remained on her. She planted her spear into the shallow bed and turned toward him, her glowing eyes holding his gaze with unshakable intensity. "Do you know why I watched you?" she asked, her voice carrying an almost ceremonial weight. Marcus shook his head, silent, waiting for her to continue. He didn't want to give her any more than he had to, not until he understood the rules of this strange encounter. The huntress tilted her head, studying him as though he were an animal she had cornered. "Because you endure," she said simply. "Many of your kind perish within days on this world. They are fragile, blind to the rhythms of the hunt, deaf to the language of survival. But you adapt. You move as though the jungle has accepted you." Her lips curled faintly, though whether it was approval or warning, Marcus couldn't tell. "That is rare." Marcus let the words sink in, though he couldn't help but scoff faintly. "So I'm not dead. That makes me special?" His tone was dry, almost dismissive, but beneath it there was a pulse of unease. He didn't like being studied this way, reduced to a curiosity in someone else's experiment. The huntress's smile widened, sharp and dangerous. "Not merely special. Worthy. There is a difference." He bristled at the word, though it was difficult to pinpoint why. Worthy of what? He had no tribe here, no banner, no prize worth chasing. His life had been reduced to survival, one day at a time. Yet when she spoke, it felt as if she was measuring him against some scale he didn't even know existed. "And what do your people want with me if I'm worthy?" he asked, his voice colder now. The huntress didn't hesitate. "To see if you can give back what the jungle gave you," she said softly, stepping closer so that the glow of her skin reflected in his eyes. Strength is not meant to wither alone. It must be shared, passed on, sharpened by those who follow. Marcus understood the meaning even before she added in that same hushed tone, "Your genes, as you call them. A hunter like you deserves to pass them forward." Marcus felt his stomach tighten at the bluntness of it. There was no mistaking her words this time. She wasn't speaking in metaphor. He stared at her, searching for any hint of jest, but her expression was stone serious. "You don't even know me," he said finally, his voice low, almost hoarse. "All you know is that I killed a beast." The huntress's eyes narrowed. "That is enough. The jungle reveals a man's truth in the hunt. No lie survives where survival is the only currency." He looked away briefly, staring at the pool's surface rippling around his legs. The weight of her words unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. Back on Earth, he had been nothing remarkable. Just another man scraping by, carrying the weight of his past mistakes. Here, though, she spoke of him as if he was chosen, as if his existence held some destiny he hadn't asked for. And yet, deep inside, something in him resonated with her claim, a dangerous spark of pride he tried to extinguish. The huntress moved closer again, the water swirling softly around her waist as she stopped barely an arm's length away. "Do not mistake this for flattery," she said, her tone turning sharper.
"If you were weak, if you had faltered even once, I would not waste a word on you."
"You would be another corpse left for the carrion birds. But you live, and you live with skill. That makes you more than prey." Her voice lowered, almost reverent. "It makes you dangerous." Marcus finally met her eyes again, searching them for deception. What he found instead was raw conviction, a kind of belief that both unsettled and intrigued him. She wasn't playing a game, wasn't manipulating him for amusement. She truly believed what she was saying. And worse, some part of him wanted to believe it too. He exhaled slowly, shaking his head. "So what happens now? You drag me to your tribe? Parade me as proof that a human can hunt?" Her expression flickered, as if the thought had crossed her mind but didn't sit well. "Perhaps once that is what I would have done. But not now. My people would not understand. They would see you as threat or as prize. Either way, you would not survive their judgment." She stepped closer, lowering her spear so that it no longer glowed, but instead rested lightly against the water's surface. "This is between us for now." The air between them grew heavier, thick with unspoken questions. Marcus's instincts screamed at him that this was no ordinary encounter. It was the beginning of something larger, something dangerous. But he also knew turning back now was impossible. He was already tangled in whatever path this woman had laid before him. "Then why show yourself at all?" he asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and suspicion. The huntress's gaze softened slightly, though it lost none of its intensity. "Because I had to know if the jungle lied, and it did not." She reached out almost hesitantly, her fingertips brushing the blood on his arm where the beast had left its mark. "You carry its truth, Marcus. You carry proof that strength can come from places we did not expect." The touch was fleeting, but it left his skin tingling as if it burned. He clenched his fists, trying to ground himself, but his pulse betrayed him, hammering faster with every second. "Careful," he warned softly, though the edge in his voice was dulled by the chaos inside him. The huntress smiled faintly, withdrawing her hand. "I am always careful." "The question is, are you?" Marcus opened his mouth to reply, but the sound of movement in the trees silenced him. Both he and the huntress turned sharply toward the shadows. Something was watching them. Not just one pair of eyes, but many. The jungle's chorus shifted, growing tense as if it too sensed the approach of predators. Marcus reached for his bow and the huntress lifted her spear, her glow sharpening once again. The moment of fragile tension between them shattered as the first shadow leapt into view. It wasn't another beast this time, it was something worse. Figures stepped from the foliage, tall and lean, their skin the same shimmering blue as hers. But their eyes burned colder, their movements more rigid, disciplined. Marcus knew immediately. These were her people, and they had found them. The huntress's jaw tightened as she stepped in front of him, spear angled forward in defiance. "Stay behind me," she hissed, her voice sharp as steel. Marcus didn't argue, though every instinct screamed at him to fight. The stranger's eyes swept over him with open disdain, their postures radiating hostility. Whatever fragile truce he had formed with the huntress was about to be tested, and the jungle seemed to lean closer, waiting to see if its chosen human would survive this next trial. The strangers advanced with a predator's grace, their spears gleaming faintly in the half-light of the jungle. Marcus counted at least 6 of them, maybe more hidden among the trees. Each step they took disturbed the air with an authority that spoke of long-trained hunters, warriors who had survived countless trials. Marcus's grip on his bow tightened, but his instinct told him that drawing it now would be suicide. He had no chance of matching their skill in open confrontation. The huntress stood between him and them, her posture taut with defiance, her glowing form casting faint ripples across the water. One of the warriors stepped forward, a male broader than the others, his shoulders adorned with bone ornaments and his spear carved with intricate markings. He stared at Marcus with open disdain, his voice carrying the weight of command. "You broke the boundary, Lyra," he said, his words sharp and cutting. "You bring prey into the sanctum, a human? This is forbidden." Marcus realized then that the huntress had a name, Lyra, and that she had risked everything by revealing herself to him. Lyra's jaw set firmly as she met the leader's gaze. "He is no prey," she said, her tone steady, though Marcus could sense the tension running beneath it. "He survived the jungle as one of us. He hunted, killed, and endured. He is proof that strength can rise from beyond our kind." Her words carried conviction, but Marcus could see they had little effect on the gathering warriors. Their eyes narrowed, lips curling in derision as they assessed him like an insect that had wandered into sacred ground. The leader scoffed, shaking his head. "No matter how many beasts he slays, he is still a human, fragile, short-lived, bound by weakness. You insult our ancestors by placing him in their shadow." He jabbed his spear toward Marcus, the tip gleaming dangerously close. Marcus didn't flinch, though the temptation to move was strong. He had learned long ago that predators respected stillness more than panic. He held his ground, locking eyes with the leader, and for a brief moment he saw surprise flicker in the alien's expression. Lyra moved sharply, knocking the spear aside with the shaft of her own weapon. "You speak of ancestors, Kyle, yet you dishonor them by ignoring what stands before you. They taught us to respect the truth of the hunt, and the truth is that he lived where others of his kind died. He is more than you wish to admit." Her voice rose with fervor, echoing through the clearing. The other warriors shifted uneasily, torn between loyalty to Kale and the undeniable weight of Lyra's conviction. Kale's glare darkened, his pride clearly wounded by her defiance. "You risk exile for this insolence," he growled. "Do you care so much for this creature that you would cast aside your people?" His words carried venom, and Marcus understood then the danger Lyra had placed herself in, not just by protecting him, but by openly challenging the authority of her leader. Marcus felt a knot twist in his chest as the weight of the situation settled over him. He wasn't just an outsider caught in their politics. He was the wedge driving a fracture between them. He wanted to speak, to tell Lyra she didn't need to risk herself for him, but the look in her eyes silenced him. It wasn't loyalty or pity that fueled her defense, it was something deeper, a conviction that went beyond logic or tradition. She truly believed he mattered. The tension thickened as Kale raised his hand, signaling the others to ready their weapons. Spears lowered in unison, their tips gleaming like shards of starlight, all aimed at Marcus's chest. The air felt heavier, as though the jungle itself was holding its breath. Marcus's pulse thundered in his ears, every instinct screaming at him to act, yet he remained rooted to the spot, waiting for the first move that would decide whether he lived or died. Then Lyra stepped forward, planting her spear firmly into the earth between Marcus and the warriors. The impact echoed with finality, a clear line drawn in the sand. "If you strike him, you strike me," she declared, her voice steady, ringing with unshakable resolve. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the distant rush of the waterfall. For the first time, Marcus realized the depth of her defiance. She wasn't merely protecting him out of curiosity or fascination. She was binding her fate to his. Kale's expression twisted with fury, his pride unraveling in front of his warriors. "You shame yourself," he spat, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. "You shame us all. Do you think the ancestors will bless this madness, that they will honor your betrayal?" His words seemed to cut deeper into the gathering than any blade, yet none of the warriors moved to strike. They watched silent, as though waiting to see if Lyra's defiance would be crushed or if it would ignite something greater. Marcus felt the weight of countless unseen eyes pressing in from the jungle, as if the world itself was watching. He had never believed in destiny, had lived his life scraping by in the margins of survival. Yet here, in this alien clearing, he felt the threads of something larger pulling tight around him. The decision was no longer just Lyra's. If he remained silent, he would be branded as nothing more than the passive object of her rebellion. If he spoke, he risked becoming the spark that could set everything aflame. Slowly, Marcus stepped forward, placing himself beside Lyra. The water lapped at his legs as he lifted his chin, meeting Kyle's burning gaze. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of every hardship he had endured. "I didn't come here to challenge your people," he said, his words measured but firm. "I came here because survival left me no choice. I don't ask for your respect. I don't ask for your acceptance. But if you think I'm prey, then strike. See if your ancestors approve when one of your best bleeds on this ground." The words hung heavy in the air, a direct challenge cloaked in calm defiance. Kale's nostrils flared, his pride demanding blood, yet his hand hesitated. Marcus's composure had unsettled him more than fear would have. It wasn't bravado. It was the quiet, steady confidence of a man who had already faced death too many times to fear it anymore. And that truth was harder to dismiss than any insult. The warriors shifted again, unease rippling through their ranks. Some averted their eyes as though acknowledging the possibility that Marcus's presence was not as meaningless as Kale insisted. Lyra's lips curved faintly, pride flickering in her gaze as she glanced at Marcus. For the first time since they had met, they stood not as hunter and quarry, not as alien and outsider, but as something closer to equals. Kyle snarled, his composure cracking. "This is not over," he hissed, his spear lowering but not in surrender. "If he remains, the council will decide his fate, and if they deem him unworthy, neither you nor your defiance will save him." With that, he gestured sharply, and the warriors withdrew, vanishing back into the shadows of the jungle like ghosts dissolving into mist. The clearing was left in silence once more, the only sound the steady rush of the waterfall. Marcus exhaled slowly, the tension uncoiling from his body in a wave of exhaustion. His heart still pounded, but he had kept his ground, and for now that was enough. Lyra turned to him, her expression softer now, though her eyes still carried the weight of what had just transpired. "You understand now," she said quietly. "This path will not be easy. They will test you, challenge you, perhaps even destroy you. But if you endure, you will change everything." Marcus met her gaze, the jungle's humid air pressing close around them. He wanted to tell her he wasn't looking to change anything, that all he wanted was to survive another day. But he couldn't bring himself to say it, because deep inside, a small, dangerous part of him knew that survival was no longer enough. Something greater was pulling him forward, and he could not walk away. The council's chamber was carved into the roots of an ancient tree, a structure so massive it seemed older than time itself. Marcus followed Lyra into the circular hall, the air thick with incense and the sound of drums echoing faintly from outside. Dozens of glowing orbs floated above, casting pale light over the elders seated in a wide arc. Their eyes, sharper than any blade, studied him with a mixture of disdain, curiosity, and suspicion. He had never felt more out of place, but he forced his shoulders to remain square, his breathing steady. This was not the jungle's hunt. This was something far more dangerous. The eldest among them, a woman draped in ceremonial garb of woven leaves and bone, leaned forward. Her voice was low, but it carried across the hall like rolling thunder. "Human," she said, tasting the word as though it were a bitter fruit. "You stand accused of trespass into sacred ground. Yet one of our finest defends you and another demands your blood. The council will decide not with words, but with proof. Do you understand?" Marcus inclined his head slightly, the gesture both respectful and firm. "I understand," he replied. Lyra stood close beside him, though she did not meet his eyes. Her expression was set like stone, as though she too was bound by the weight of tradition. She had argued for him before the council, but the final decision would not be hers alone. Kyle loomed nearby, his presence bristling with hostility, his glare promising that this test, whatever it was, would not be simple. Marcus knew that Kale wanted him to fail, wanted his death to prove a point, and if the council allowed it, Kale would make sure of it.